When I decided I didn't like California at all, I hated it, actually. So I left after a couple of years. I end up in New York City, and I get a night job in a disco. It's 1977, and disco is the hottest thing in the world. I get a job through Dean and Tom Moon, another friend from college, who are running the swankest, most expensive disco in all of New York. It was in the Sherry Netherland Hotel, super exclusive. There, if you're a king of a country, you stay at the Sherry, not the Plaza.
Welcome once again to the Talking Archive. I'm Josh Jacobs. By the way, check us out on Instagram at JoshDJ57. That's JoshDJ57. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't done so already to get updates on when we post new interviews. We try to do it every couple days, as well as some other fun features, including different filming locations. That's kind of a side thing we do every now and then, but mainly it's interviews with classic radio talent. And with us once again is Chuck McKibben. He's the author of the book Mel Blanc, The Voice of Bugs Bunny and Me, inside the studio with Hollywood's Man with 1,000 Voices. Now, Chuck, you decided to take the big leap, take the risk, and get out of your comfort zone and go to the next level in your career. And you got to talk to the sales manager from KABC TV Channel 7. Now, what was that sales manager's name?
That's so long ago, but it would have been 1969 or some year like that. And but the kid was very kind to connect me with him, his dad. I don't know why he came to Cincinnati. I got nearly nothing from the courses there to prepare me for radio or broadcasting in general. I ended up teaching Broadcast Equipment 101 because the instructor was a TV engineer, and he was drawing schematic diagrams of equipment for the students. Whereas I had worked at a real radio station, Wing and WONE and WGIC and Xenia, and I knew the equipment. I was a good production man already. And he said, well, you're getting straight A pluses and everybody else is failing. Will you teach? I'll grade. Just don't tell anybody here. And that's what I did. I'm so proud of that. I'm also proud that I was offered 3 times to teach at universities. But because I had dropped out just to go get a job, I said, listen, I believe more in a trade school for a disc jockey than in universities. And, it's a job where nobody ever said, hey, Chuck, do you have a master's degree in broadcast? They didn't offer one. You could only get a bachelor's in broadcasting. And it taught you nearly nothing because it was all academic. It wasn't hands-on. I must say our college radio station, WFIB, World's Finest in Broadcasting, which sold actual airtime and bought equipment, the finest equipment in all of Cincinnati, by the way. A huge, a president or ambassador board from Gates, 16-inch Gates turntables, 4 Gates Criterion cart machines, all brand new, RCA 77DX. Oh my God, the station was CBS Volumax, and it was only going out to the residents of the halls, the residency halls on the campus. But that was 30,000 kids.
At the University of Cincinnati, correct?
Right. And so we had towers. We had big resident towers for all of these kids. And they listened to us religiously. And, of course, we were playing just for them, taking their requests and playing them right away for real, not ignoring them. And we called ourselves the Big 8 and patterned our top 40 format after CKLW.
Wow.
And it worked. We had sponsors. Overnight, we automated our engineer, George Smith. I don't know if he'll ever hear of this or anything. I've been out of touch since my college days. He was a brilliant engineer and put it all together. And Smith Hall was a company that he ran there. Well, he figured out a way that the cart machines could fire off each other all night long. So he put in the longest carts that would play in a Criterion, which was like a half hour, I guess. Preloaded all the songs and jingles and commercials. And every quarter we sold for several, I think $3,000. We sold that airtime to Playboy magazine and to Pepsi Cola, which were advertising overnight while kids studied and listened to WFIB. They were hearing commercials that were paid for in big numbers. Well, this actually drew the attention of a well-known programmer who I'm told was not a good guy. He was very, very famous in, I think, Chicago. I won't mention his name. But we started the War Moratorium Network, the Vietnam War Moratorium Network, and hooked up a whole bunch of college radio stations. With the help of John Lennon and other big shots, we started protesting against the war because we were losing friends in that stupid Vietnam War. Mm-hmm. And we were very proud to be fighting against it using our college radio station, which, of course, the officials of the university were horrified by everything that we did. They had an FM station that only broadcast classical music, and all that you could do there as a student was be a board operator. You could play the records. You couldn't announce. That was the job of the teachers. You know, they got to announce. So it taught us nothing. And the WFIB experience with Dean Thompson, a wonderful human, I've not thanked him adequately enough. What a name to have when you're in college, Dean, his real name. So he would call people and say, "This is Dean Thompson from the University of Cincinnati." And play on that. I mean, that was a great advantage, right? He's not lying.
No, he's not. Kind of like the character Dean Martin in the movie Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield. Thank you, Dean Martin.
That's right. And this wonderful man who was legally blind, that didn't stop him at all. He eventually became John Lennon's personal aide in the Dakota.
Wow.
And had fabulous stories to tell about John and Yoko and George and all that. And, I could write a book about that, except I would want to interview him, and I don't know where he is now. I've totally lost track of him. But Dean Thompson, if you happen to hear this, please know you were just the greatest. And I lived with Dean and several other people on Staten Island, worked at a disco. When I decided I didn't like California at all. I hated it, actually. So I left after a couple of years. I end up in New York City, and I get a night job in a disco. It's 1977, and disco is the hottest thing in the world.
Oh, yeah.
So I get a job through Dean and Tom Moon, another friend from college, who are running the swankest, most expensive disco in all of New York. It was in the Sherry Netherland Hotel, super exclusive. If you're a king of a country, you stay at the Sherry, not the Plaza, because they take good care of you. I mean, they come and make your bed and all that. At 4 a.m., you say, "I want some Spumoni ice cream." They go get it for you.
Wow.
It's that kind of thing. So it was a membership only, a $2,000 a year membership. We had people like Frank Sinatra, Andy Warhol, the president of RCA Corporation, a lot of rich billionaire kids.
Robert Sarnoff?
Robert Sarnoff was there partying most nights instead of running RCA as he should have been. Yeah, he was a terrible. I mean, when David Sarnoff turned it over to him, he wrecked it. He crashed it. He literally crashed it with his partying and indifference. I didn't mean to get into that topic, but the man got rid of the peacock. He got rid of the RCA Victor logo, his master's voice.
Oh, yeah.
He changed the logo to the stupid N that University of Nebraska already had. He was an idiot. I mean, he was a do-nothing figurehead of RCA. And I know this because I've been good friends with a man who repairs RCA ribbon microphones, who has just retired as of today, which is one of the last days of March of 24. ENAC, Clarence Kane, the man who repaired every famous person's ribbon microphone for the last 50 years.
Wow.
Would say RCA died because of indifference, because of lack of progress. No more research, no more development. Let's rest on our laurels. And he said, "I want to take this equipment home and repair RCA mics." So he would be the man. If you owned an RCA 77DX, the greatest mic, of course, the most iconic mic of all time, and you needed it re-ribboned, well, he was your man. And I got to visit him in Pittman, New Jersey. He just retired.
Wow.
But his company's been taken over by a young man who is the son of one of my voiceover students. And that's what I do now. I teach voiceover. At 77, I'm still very keenly interested in voice work, and I teach it. But I spent then, in the middle of all this, I spent 30 years in New York City starting with that job at Doubles. It's still there, I believe. The disco is still there. And the height of the disco era. And Frank Sinatra, came up to the booth and asked me to play one of his records. And he gave me one of these, okay, kid, and tossed me a $20 bill. Stuff like that would happen every night. It was pretty amazing. But I was restricted just to the DJ booth. I was not to mingle with these fabulous people at all. I'm a commoner from Ohio, after all. But I was the DJ 6 nights a week at this fabulous swank place. But that freed me to go out and seek the real work that I wanted in broadcasting during the day. So I wanted to be a voiceover at this point. I wanted to do production, audio production. I'd kind of given up on the idea that I would be a DJ, because I realized, too, that all of my heroes were gone in 6 months or 9 months at the station where I heard them, or in a different time slot, maybe good, maybe bad. And I realized it's kind of becoming a dead end. Of course, it did. Unfortunately, by this time, we know that disc jockeys are a dying breed. I loved that work. I loved it passionately. The most fun I ever had with my clothes on was working as a disc jockey in Dayton. But I ventured into voice work. And I got a tremendous lucky break by going to a studio that gave me a free hour, valued at about $500 an hour, because the young man on the board needed practice. So I got to record a half hour's worth of material at Photomagnetics on 42nd or 43rd Street next to Grand Central Station in Manhattan. Well, all the TV networks went there to do promos. They would send their voice guys to record things like tonight on the CBS late night movie, Telly Savalas stars, stuff like that. I walk into the studio. My God, Josh, I heard coming out of the 4 or 5 studios down the hallway, Ford for 1977 has the ride that you were looking for. Ford records here, national advertisers. I said to the receptionist, what goes on here? She said, well, Glen Sound out in California? I said, yes. She said, we're that on the East Coast. We record for all the networks when they're on film, and we record for Woody Allen in post-production and stuff like that. Oh, my God. And you're giving me a studio to use. Well, Tom needs the practice in the room. Okay. So this went for hundreds of dollars in the 1970s. That would be like $1,500 an hour today.
Oh, yeah.
And Tom and I started a joint venture. I became his announcer. And because of Tom working there, he called me a week later and said, Tom Avitabile called me and said, Chuck, you remember you did an impression of Mickey Mouse while you were here? I said, yeah. He said, I just played that for Disney merchandising. You're hired. You're going to be the voice of Mickey here in New York on a merchandising thing.
Wow.
Okay, you could have knocked me over with a feather, obviously. But it was a T-shirt company wanted to dub in some lines of Mickey saying, well, you ought to come and see my really cool new shirts. So basically I made $50, which would be worth about $250 today, for doing about 15 minutes worth of work as Mickey.
Wow.
From then on, people in ad agencies knew me as the voice of Mickey Mouse.
Wow.
And Tom got me into the ad agency business, which was perfect for me because I could write, record, produce, direct, and, I could do 5 different things for one paycheck. And so suddenly with Tom Avitabile, who is now a very great writer of novels, and I think he's out on Long Island. I've been out of touch with Tom forever.
How do you spell his name, by the way?
Avitabile. It looks like Avitabile. Some might pronounce it that way, but it was Tom Avitabile. And girls just fell for this man. Oh, my God. He was such a chick magnet. He was the Italian stallion and a great guy, an awesome guy. We built a studio in the ad agency, a lead-lined recording studio, so that we could do all our own production work without going out. And this was in Queens, in the borough of Queens, right on Queens Boulevard. And we rocked and rolled for about 8 years together there. And I was on the air on New York City, radio and TV all the time. Well, one day we're driving around early on in this, and we're listening to WABC, to Big Dan Ingram in the afternoon.
Oh, yeah.
We're cruising in Manhattan, and we hear one of my commercials that I've voiced come on the air. It was for Ed's Tropical Aquariums, and it was a takeoff in the $20,000 pyramid. But it was called the 30,000 Fish Pyramid. Okay, so I'm feeling super proud. Hey, I'm on New York radio. I'm on WABC and Drive Time. And Big Dan managed to blow my excitement instantly, because he came out of the spot and he ad-libbed, 30,000 fish. Woo! Thank you, Dan. I never liked him after that.
By the way, Tom Avitabile, he's actually online. He's got his own website, tomavitabile.com, and his newest one is Ask Not, a JFK murder mystery crime thriller.
Yeah, he's a good writer. He was a terrific producer. For years, he lived in the Hamptons and would continue to be an advertising consultant. A great guy who taught me more lessons than anybody. He taught me to do film, by the way. We did some film commercials. You've got a shot of me after, Tom was not there anymore. I continued to produce some commercials on 35 millimeter Panavision film. And he taught me that process. He taught me to run a Niagara film recorder and sync it up with the camera and all that stuff. We did some big shoots. I worked for Cadillac, the tri-state Cadillac dealers, as both producer and director and voice in commercials for them. My greatest achievement in the voice area was spending a decade doing movie trailers for Time Warner Home Theater for their pay-per-view channels.
And next time we'll find out how Chuck McKibben got that job. He's the author of the book Mel Blanc, The Voice of Bugs Bunny, ... and me. Inside the studio with Hollywood's man of 1,000 voices, Chuck's also going to be talking about the legendary 710 KMPC in Los Angeles, specifically one of their best talents ever, probably the best talent ever, Gary Owens, and how the studios worked at that radio station that was owned by Gene Autry. That's next time here on the Talking Archive.